Perks, who's from the Regional Youth Climate Assembly, very active in this space, and he's going to be speaking to you about that intergenerational dimension. So I'm just going to step away. It's quite a nice illustration of what you see on the stage, however. You're about to see, step away, somebody who this morning received his invitation to apply for his state pension, who is going to pass over to somebody who, to his great frustration, is not going to be able to vote yet in the general election next week. So that's quite a generational span, I think, for us to think about as we hear from Django. Django, thank you.
Climate Assembly for Yorkshire and Humber. We aim to bring together local youth voices to tackle climate issues, and not just on a local but on a regional and a national scale.
Climate change isn't just about saving the planet. There are many intersectional factors that it covers. For example, the democratisation of young people and how their action helps preserve the sea for future younger generations. In the discussions with other global and social issues,
we need to ensure that real power and authority to create meaningful change is given to young people now, because that's the only way that we're actually going to solve this climate crisis.
There's an idea that young people are the future. This is an idea that's wrong. Young people aren't the future in any way. Young people are the present, and we need to be listened to now.
What we want to see is young people being a part of the process to develop this policy that impacts them now.
And I think what will that do is turn your anxiety into anger, and then your anger into action to solve climate change.
The second you start talking about the next generation, the second you give up on this generation.
The politicians from the future need to be able to overcome their challenges and efficiently fulfill their pledges.
Climate change will affect everyone in different ways, but it will affect everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping you can all hear me. It's wonderful. My name is Django. Thank you, David, for that introduction. I'm 17 and I'm a youth social activist. I'm delighted to be here today as a member of the Yorkshire and Humber Regional Youth Climate Assembly. I've also been a campaign coordinator on a climate education campaign called Teach for Teacher, and I'm also a part of many other youth social action projects and campaigns. Today, I'm here to speak to you about how we can use and utilise an intergenerational approach to sustainable climate action. We'll explain what that all means in a second, but first let me introduce you and talk to you about RECA. In its full name, RECA is the Yorkshire and Humber Regional Youth Climate Assembly, and we work across the region to bring young people's views and opinions to the attention of decision makers within the region. We've worked with various organisations and have spoken at various events, such as the event in the video, COP26. The purpose of the next half hour, or 20-ish minutes, I don't want to take too much away from you, Ray, is to explore the use of intergenerational approaches within climate action. So let's speak about what I mean by intergenerational climate action. Intergenerational, as the word suggests, is about several generations, such as Gen Z, millennials, working together to achieve a goal or something other than that. So intergenerational climate action is referring to the use of both younger and older generations working together on campaigns and potential solutions for the climate crisis. I did these cue cards in a terrible way. It was 10 PM last night, so you'll have to bear with me. This is something that can be seen. This is something that can be seen in many formats, whether it be adults supporting young people in a campaign that young people are leading, or young people being involved in a project or campaign that adults are leading. I don't want to spend too much time talking about if there's a correct way to lead intergenerational climate action, but I do want to quickly emphasise that intergenerational action does not, and I mean this, does not involve tokenising young people's voices. If you want to know more about that sort of area, then Charlie is at the back there, and I'm sure she can give you a whole 2-3 hour lecture on what's right and what's wrong. So I'm going to take you through a few examples of campaigns that have shown that an intergenerational approach is in fact the most valid and successful way of achieving sustainable climate action. These are not the only campaigns out there doing this, but they are the ones I know that every organisation can learn from ultimately. The first is a campaign that I believe is truly unique in its approach, Teach for Teacher. Teach for Teacher is a climate education campaign that works with students to help schools embed climate education and appropriate and inspiring climate education within their curriculum. As a student myself, I often know how it feels to see teachers going on training courses led by adults who think they know what's best for the students. This is one of the many problems and issues we have with our education system. Education is not led by those receiving it. Teachers and students need to work together to figure out what's best for them as a school. So I believe Teach for Teacher is the epitome of intergenerational climate action within schools. Students are trained to teach their teachers about climate change and what climate education they personally would like. The feedback we've heard about this project is incredible. Teachers love being taught by their students, and students love having that control over their education. Climate change is a pressing issue, and young people don't feel prepared to face it. By having Teach for Teacher, we are forming a strong and valuable intergenerational bonds within the classroom. Another incredible example of intergenerational climate action is another climate education campaign called Teach for Future. Teach for Future, however, works differently to Teach for Teacher. It's going to get very boring me saying teach for all the time. But yeah, we decided to name them all that because it kind of emphasises what we're about. It works by going straight to the root cause of why we don't have climate education. It does its work with decision makers themselves. Teach for Future is a campaign led by secondary and tertiary education students to greatly improve education on the climate emergency and ecological crisis in the UK. It's supported and led by an incredible cohort of student staff and supported by adult staff. Teach for Future has intergenerational action at the heart of it, set up by young people who are frustrated by the lack of climate education within their curriculum and run by young people passionate about the issue. I believe Teach for Future is a perfect example of how we should be tackling the climate crisis now and in the future. It's a model of how decision makers and young people should be working together to solve the issues of the day. RECA itself is an incredible example of intergenerational action. By working with decision makers and other key stakeholders, young members of RECA ensure that their voices are heard in climate policy discussions. The Assembly provides a platform for young people to contribute their ideas and collaborate with older generations on climate initiatives. We often say that young people are the future, but as you heard in my video, Will said it perfectly clearly. Young people aren't the future, they are the present, and we need to work with them now. So climate change isn't waiting around until there's no one left. We're seeing the effects of it every single day. That means we need effective decision making that puts young people at the heart of it. Young people are having long-term decisions made that will affect them more than 650 people with an average age of 40 to 50 making those decisions for them. So what's the answer? Well, we need to start transferring the approaches I just spoke about to actual decision making. We need to see decision makers, including young people, in policy discussions, particularly climate policies. We need to see young people considered when making these policies. By examining the effects of the policy in 10, 20 or 30 years' time, we can make sure that these policies are fit for the future. Realistically, this all starts with our ability to hold institutions accountable. Let's start on a regional level. We need mayoral combined authorities to set up appropriate scrutiny boards that allow young people to sit on them. At a national level, we need to see policies consider young people. A start to this would be effective policy But at the heart of these policies, we need to know what the effects of the policy will be in the future. We need to see that it will achieve what we need it to ensure young people's futures are safe. And on a global level, we need to see every government and leader listen to their young people. Global conferences like COP need to ensure there are young people there in a way that means they can talk to leaders and tell them what they want to see from them. We need young people to be incorporated into every single conversation. Realistically, there are barriers. Not everything I've mentioned can be achieved as quickly as I'd like it to, because there are societal barriers that exist. I'm very aware that I've just been speaking to you for the last 10 minutes. So I'd like to take a couple of suggestions from you. What do you guys think are the barriers to ensuring intergenerational climate action? Raise your hand, shout out. You got any? Yes.
Thank you. Will that work? I think probably people's biases on what young people know and how knowledgeable they are and lack of experience, I think. Whereas obviously young people are very capable of taking on a lot of information very quickly, and so that may not be the case.
Exactly, yes, that's a big issue that I see in every conversation I have, particularly with decision makers. You'd be surprised how many of them think that just because they don't pay tax or they're too young to have an effective voice. Anyone else in the room? Yes? Oh. The gentleman there.
A lack of effective citizenship education in schools to actually develop young people with the skills as active citizens.
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the things I mentioned, climate education as well, alongside citizenship education, the core parts of what we need in our systems are not being taught across every subject. Like climate education, it's being taught in geography or just in the sciences. It needs to be there, present in every single subject, from maths all the way to history. You know, there needs to be that broad spectrum teaching. I'll take one more suggestion. Should we take the gentleman in the, I'm going to say pink shirt.
Pink or salmon?
No.
I think one of the problems is there's always a fear around change, doing something differently, making a change or letting other people have a voice.
Exactly, yes. And I mean, we see, I don't want to speak too much about politics considering the current political situation, but yeah, we do see a lot of politicians that are fearful of the change that young people want. They're too scared to take that leap and actually listen to them. So I'm sorry if you didn't get the chance to say anything, but I'd like to speak to you about a couple of barriers I see every day in many campaigns. Firstly, we need to talk about methods in which we get young people involved. Within South Yorkshire, we have some of the most deprived areas in the nation. These are full of families that can barely afford to put food on the table or turn the heatings on. These aren't families going on holiday every Easter, summer and Christmas. So how do we expect them to participate if they require a device to join online meetings? How do we expect them to find relevant opportunities if that they are interested in if they don't have constant access to the internet? Not only that, but because these young people are so often overlooked, how do we expect them to be confident that they can take part in the opportunity? The level of inequality we have, not only within South Yorkshire but also nationally, is a huge barrier to ensuring young people can get involved. It impacts multiple other services such as healthcare and education, alongside services that work to ensure young people are heard. Youth work. Youth work units up and down the country are constantly working to ensure that the young people they work with are heard. RECA itself is hosted by the Yorkshire and Humber Youth Work Unit. Without youth work units, youth workers and youth organisations, young people's voices wouldn't be heard as much as they are now. But we need more of that, and we need to provide much more support to youth workers and youth work units to ensure this can continue to happen. So why did I choose to speak about this for the last 20 minutes? because it's important. I recognise that I'm speaking to a wide audience right here, you're all from different organisations or the council or the mayoral combined authority or small businesses. But whoever you are in here, there is room for intergenerational climate action within the work you do. It's hugely important to recognise that sustainable climate action should be and can be led by an intergenerational approach. There's something that Curtis said in the video I showed you at the start that really resounded with me. He said that the issue of climate change shows us the need to focus on the democratisation of young people and how their action helps reserve the seat for younger generations in the discussions of further global and social issues. And I think that really sums it up. Young people need to be in the discussion now and in the future, and that's how we achieve sustainable climate action. So, we'll now move on to any questions. There's the blue clap poll, I believe. If you've got any questions, you can put your hand up or submit them on that. It's completely up to you.